Divorced men. What happened when your ex-wife realized you're now dating her mom? Story 1. My ex-wife, Jenna, always said her mom was the only adult in this family. She used it like a weapon, like I was a child, and she was my supervisor. When the divorce finalized, Jenna threw a party in our old house and posted it like a victory lap. 2 weeks later, her mom, Linda, knocked on my apartment door holding a casserole like it was a peace treaty. "I'm not here to take sides," she said. "I'm here because I watched you get erased." I should have shut the door. Instead, I let her in. We talked for 2 hours. Not about Jenna, about grief, starting over, and how weird it feels when your life gets edited without your permission. After that, she started checking in. Then we started getting coffee. Then we started laughing again. 6 months later, I took her to a small jazz bar. We weren't hiding. We just weren't advertising. Until Jenna walked in, arm in arm with her new guy, and froze like someone hit pause on her face. She stared at Linda. "Mom, why are you with him?" Linda didn't flinch. "Because he treats me like a person," Jenna's new guy whispered. "This is your mom?" Like he'd stepped into a reality show. Jenna's eyes went straight to me. "So you couldn't keep me? So you upgraded to my mother?" Linda squeezed my hand under the table. Jenna's voice got louder. And that's when Linda leaned in and said, calm as ice, "No, honey, I left your father because he cheated. I'm not scared of your tantrums." Jenna's glass hit the floor. Everyone looked, and Jenna hissed, "If you don't leave with me right now, you're dead to me." Linda didn't stand up. She raised her chin and said, "Then bury me." Story 2. My ex, Tasha, cheated and still managed to make the divorce sound like I was the villain. Her favorite move was calling me controlling whenever I asked for basic honesty. Her mother, Marisol, never liked me, until the night Tasha got arrested for trying to break into my storage unit. She was looking for the signed settlement copy. Yes, really. Marisol showed up at the station to pick her up, saw me sitting there, and her whole face changed. Not sympathy, recognition. Like she finally understood what it feels like to be trapped in Tasha's chaos. A week later, Marisol asked if I could help her sell her late father's old truck. I know cars. She didn't. We met, handled the sale, and ended up eating tacos in the parking lot like two people who'd survived the same storm. She told me quietly, "Tasha learned cruelty from her father. I tried to stop it. I failed." I said, "I'm not asking you to fix her." She nodded like she'd been waiting years to hear that. Over months, we ran into each other. Then we planned it. A real date. Then another. It wasn't some revenge thing. It was two adults realizing life doesn't end just because someone else burned it down. We kept it private until Tasha needed money. She barged into Marisol's house demanding a loan. I was there, washing dishes, wearing an old band tee. Tasha saw me and went pale. "You're here because you're still obsessed with me," she spat. Marisol walked in behind her and said, "He's here because I invited him." Tasha looked at her mom like she'd been slapped. "Mom, tell me you're not doing this." Marisol crossed her arms. "I'm doing what I should have done years ago, choosing peace over your drama." Tasha's voice turned sugary. "If you pick him, you lose your daughter." Marisol didn't blink. "If you keep threatening me, you lose your mother." Tasha stepped closer to me, eyes wild. "Say it's not real. Say you're using her." Marisol reached for my hand first. "It's real," Tasha screamed. "Then I'm calling Grandma and telling her you're sleeping with my ex." Marisol smiled. "Small. Dangerous. Go ahead. She already knows." She set us up. Story 3. My ex-wife, Claire, is the kind of person who collects wins. Not memories. Not friends. Wins. After the divorce, she kept calling me like she was bored and needed someone to kick. Then she'd hang up and text, "Oops, wrong number," every time. Her mom, Diane, was the opposite. Quiet, polite, always apologizing for Claire's behavior like it was spilled wine. The wild part? Diane and I ended up on the same volunteer committee at our kids' school fundraiser. Claire refused to help because that's for desperate moms. Diane showed up early and stayed late. One night we were packing chairs and she said, "I'm embarrassed by my daughter." I said, "You're allowed to love her and still be tired." Her eyes watered, like nobody had ever given her permission to be human. A few months later, Diane asked if I could walk her to her car after a meeting because her ex-husband had been showing up. I did. Then I started doing it every time. Then we started grabbing dinner after. Then we stopped pretending it wasn't a date. Claire found out when she tried to weaponize our kids' parent-teacher night. She walked in late, loud, and saw Diane sitting next to me, laughing at something I said. Claire leaned over the row and whispered, "Mom, what are you doing?" Diane said, listening. Claire's smile turned sharp. "To him? After what he did to me?" Diane didn't even look at her. "What you mean is, after what you say he did." Claire's eyes snapped to me. "You're disgusting. You always wanted someone older to control you." I stood up, calm. Claire, stop! She laughed like I proved her point. Oh, now you're the mature one. Diane finally turned and said, loud enough for other parents to hear, Claire, I have spent years cleaning up your lies. I'm done. The room went silent. Claire's face flushed red. She grabbed her phone and said, fine, I'll post it. Let everyone see what kind of freak you are. Diane smiled, took out her own phone and said, post it. I'll comment the screenshots. Story 4. I didn't plan to date my ex-wife's mom. I planned to disappear. When the divorce ended, I moved 2 towns over and focused on rebuilding. Gym, therapy, new job, new routines, no drama. Then her mom, Sharon, started coming to my dad's diner. I didn't even notice at first. She wore a baseball cap and sat in the corner. One day my dad goes, that lady tips like she's trying to apologize. Turns out Sharon and my ex, Brooke, weren't speaking. Brooke had cut her off for not being loyal enough during the divorce. Sharon eventually told me why she kept coming. The diner reminded her of when Brooke was little and still laughed without keeping score. We started talking. Not flirty, just honest. 2 people who both lost someone to the same personality. 6 months later, Sharon invited me to a charity gala her company sponsored. I went because I needed practice being social again. She looked stunning. I looked like I borrowed confidence from a friend. Brooke showed up, uninvited, like a missile. She saw us, connected the dots, and marched straight over. Mom, tell me this is a joke, she said, smiling like it hurt. Sharon's voice stayed level. It's not. Brooke turned to me. So this is your revenge? I said, no. This is my life. Brooke laughed, too loud. You're pathetic. You couldn't replace me, so you crawled up the family tree. Sharon leaned in and said, he didn't crawl. I climbed down. Brooke's face twisted. You're going to humiliate me in public? Sharon nodded once. You've humiliated everyone in private for years. Consider this balancing the books. Brooke looked around and realized people were listening. She grabbed a glass of champagne, raised it like a toast, and said, everyone, quick announcement. My mother is dating my ex-husband. A few people gasped. A few laughed nervously. Sharon lifted her own glass and said, yes, and if anyone has questions about why my daughter is no longer welcome at my company, ask her about the embezzlement. Brooke's glass slipped out of her hand. Story 5. The internet thinks this situation is automatically gross. Here's the part people miss. My ex-wife, Natalie, used her mom as a shield her entire life. Anytime she hurt someone, she'd hide behind, my mom says you're overreacting. Her mom, Beth, was basically a ghost. Quiet, anxious, always smoothing things over, always paying for Natalie's messes. After the divorce, Natalie tried to make co-parenting a war. She'd cancel my weekends last minute, then post, single mom life broken heart like I didn't exist. Beth called me one night at 11 p.m. and whispered, can you come get your son? Natalie's out. Again, I drove over. Beth opened the door with shaking hands like she was terrified of her own daughter. That night didn't turn into romance. It turned into a pattern. Beth asking for help when Natalie spiraled. Me showing up. Our kids sleeping peacefully while the adults cleaned the wreckage. One night Beth finally said, I'm tired of being her excuse. I said, then stop. She stared at me like the word had never been allowed in her life. Weeks later, Beth moved into a small apartment. Away from Natalie. Away from the constant emotional blackmail. I helped her carry boxes, fix a leaky sink, and install a lock that actually worked. Somewhere in there, between screws and silence, she touched my arm and didn't pull away. We didn't announce it. We didn't parade it. We were careful. Because this wasn't a joke, it was complicated. Natalie found out anyway. She showed up at Beth's place screaming, pounding the door like a cop. Beth opened it, saw Natalie's rage, and quietly stepped aside, letting Natalie see me inside, holding a plate of food and my kid's toy dinosaur. Natalie's voice cracked. You're with him? After everything, Beth said. After everything, yes. Natalie shook her head like she couldn't compute betrayal from someone she thought she owned. You're choosing my leftovers. Beth's face hardened for the first time I'd ever seen. No, I'm choosing someone who doesn't make me feel small. Natalie turned on me. You can't do this. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone you groomed my mother. I didn't even raise my voice. Tell them the truth too. That you dumped her on me every time you wanted to party. Natalie's eyes flicked to our kid. Then back to Beth. Beth took my hand, looked Natalie dead in the face, and said, if you try to ruin him, I'll testify about what I've covered up for you. Natalie went quiet. Then she smiled, slow, ugly, and said, okay, let's go to court. Story 6. My ex-wife, Paige, was addicted to humiliating me in public. After the divorce, she'd accidentally bump into me at places, loud enough for strangers to hear, "Oh wow, you still drive that?" Or, "How's the sad apartment life?" Her mom, Carol, was the only person who ever told her to stop. Paige hated that, said her mom was jealous of her. One Saturday, I'm at a farmer's market with my kid, and Carol is there alone, looking lost. She spots us and says, "I didn't know where else to go." Turns out Paige had blocked her because Carol refused to babysit while Paige went on a weekend trip with her new boyfriend. I bought Carol a coffee. She cried right there in the line, wiping tears like she was ashamed to have them. Weeks later, Carol started showing up at my kids' soccer games because Paige wouldn't come unless she could make it about herself. Carol cheered softly, brought oranges, kept it calm. My kid adored her. One evening, Paige called me screaming, "Why is my mom at your games?" I said, "Because she loves her grandchild." Paige hissed, "No, she's doing it to make me look bad." Then Carol, who was sitting on my porch because she'd dropped off a sweater, took the phone from my hand. "Paige," she said, voice flat, "you don't need help looking bad." Paige went silent. Then she laughed, fake and sharp. "So you're sleeping with him now?" "Congrats, Mom. Real classy." Carol didn't deny it. "I'm done living to keep you calm." Paige drove over like a storm. She burst into my yard yelling, filming on her phone, "Everyone look! My mom is dating my ex. He's a predator." I didn't move. Carol stepped forward and said, loud enough that the neighbors heard, "Tell them why you blocked me. Tell them why you left your child with me 3 nights a week and called it self-care." Paige's camera wobbled. "Stop," Carol smiled coldly. "Post the video. I'll post the receipts." Story 7. The joke in my town is that my ex-wife, Bree, collects upgrades. New car, new friends, new man. She replaces everything instead of fixing anything. Her mom, Joan, wasn't like that. She was a librarian type. Quiet, observant, always noticing the details everyone else missed. After the divorce, I started going to a grief support group because I felt like I'd lost my entire identity. On week 3, Joan walked in and sat across from me. Same group, same circle, same awkward, "Oh, you're here" moment. She didn't look at me, just said, "I'm not here to talk about Bree." I said, "Me neither." Over months, we became 2 people who could breathe around each other. Then 2 people who could laugh. Then, something else. Bree found out at her cousin's wedding. I was there with Joan, and we weren't even holding hands. We were just standing together, like it was normal. Bree marched over in heels that looked like weapons. "Mom, tell me you're not here with him." Joan's face stayed calm. "I am." Bree turned to me. "You did this to hurt me." I said, "You don't get to be the victim in every story." Bree's smile slipped. "He's manipulating you, Mom. He's bitter. He wants revenge." Joan finally snapped, right there in front of half the wedding guests. "Revenge? I raised you. I've watched you use people like furniture. If anyone manipulates, it's you." Bree's eyes widened like she'd never heard her mom speak that way. She grabbed Joan's wrist. "You're embarrassing me." Joan pulled away. "Good. Maybe you'll finally feel what you've been doing to others." Bree's voice went venomous. "Fine. Keep him. But don't come crying when I take you off the family list." Joan leaned in and whispered something that made Bree go pale. Later, Joan told me what it was. I already changed my will. Story 8. I met my ex's mom in the most ridiculous way. She keyed my car by mistake. My ex-wife, Kelly, had a black sedan. I had a black sedan. Her mom, Donna, saw the cheating jerk's car outside a gym and went full revenge mode. Then she realized the license plate wasn't Kelly's at all. It was mine. Donna waited by my car like a guilty teenager until I came out. She blurted, "I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else." I stared at the scratches and said, "You thought I was me?" Her face fell. "I thought you were my daughter's ex-husband." "I am." Donna looked like she might faint. Then she started crying. Right there, in the parking lot. We ended up at a body shop together because she insisted on paying. While we waited, she admitted the truth. Kelly had fed her a story for years. How I was abusive, how I destroyed her. Donna finally asked, "Were you really that bad?" I pulled out the old texts. Not to win, just to end the lie. The screenshots of Kelly threatening to keep my son from me unless I behaved. The messages where she admitted she cheated and told me to be a man and accept it. Donna went quiet. Then she whispered, "Oh my God." She invited me to dinner to apologize properly. That dinner turned into a second, then a third. It wasn't romantic at first. It was 2 people realizing they'd been played by the same person. Kelly found out when Donna stopped sending her money. Kelly showed up at Donna's house screaming, "You're choosing him over your daughter?" Donna opened the door and said, "No, I'm choosing the truth over your drama." Kelly saw me behind her and lost it. "You're poisoning her." Donna held up her phone. "Keep yelling. I'm recording. For the first time, I'm not protecting you." Kelly's rage turned desperate. "Mom, please. Donna's voice turned ice cold. You already keyed the wrong car, Kelly. Now you're attacking the wrong person. Story 9. My ex-wife Rachel liked to act like she escaped me. She'd tell anyone who listened that she was finally free, like I was a prison. Then she moved back into her mom's house. Her mom, Nina, called me one night because Rachel had brought a new boyfriend over and left her teenage sister alone upstairs with loud arguments downstairs. Nina whispered, I can't keep doing this. I'm too old. I came over to pick up my kids' things and found Nina sitting on the kitchen floor, holding her head like she was sick. Rachel was in the living room yelling, blaming everyone, blaming the divorce, blaming me, blaming the weather. Nina looked at me and mouthed, help. After that, Nina started asking me for practical advice. How to set boundaries, how to stop feeling guilty. She'd spent decades apologizing for other people. One day, she showed me a notebook. She had written rules like a checklist. No yelling in my home. No surprise guests. Rent or leave. I laughed and said, that's not mean. That's healthy. She smiled like she'd forgotten how. We didn't start dating in some dramatic way. It started with coffee after therapy appointments. Then dinner. Then a weekend trip to a quiet lake where nobody knew our names. Rachel found out when she snooped through Nina's email. Classic. She waited until a family dinner to explode. She slammed her fork down and yelled, you're sleeping with my ex. Nina didn't flinch. Lower your voice, Rachel screamed. You're doing this to punish me. Nina leaned forward, eyes steady. No, Rachel. I'm doing it because he's kind. And because I finally realized I don't owe you my entire life. Rachel stood up so fast her chair fell. Fine. If you want him, you can have him. But you'll never see me again. Nina calmly picked up her phone and said, promise, story 10. My ex-wife, Hannah, treated me like a stepping stone. When she left, she told me, I'm not built for small lives. Then she posted a picture with her new boyfriend in Dubai within a month. Her mom, Elise, didn't post. Elise called. She showed up at my place with a bag of old photos and said, I need to return these. I can't look at them without feeling guilty. I invited her in. She sat at my table and stared at a photo of our wedding like it was evidence from a crime scene. She wasn't always like this, Elise whispered, but I enabled it. That honesty hit me harder than Hannah's cruelty ever did. Elise started helping me with my kid when Hannah would cancel. She cooked, read bedtime stories, showed up. Slowly, she became part of my stability. Then one night, after my kid fell asleep, Elise confessed something that made my stomach drop. Hannah had been cheating for years. Elise had known, and Hannah had threatened to cut her off if she told me. I didn't yell. I just said, that's why you look like you're carrying bricks. Elise cried silently. Then she said, I don't want to be her secret keeper anymore. A month later, we went out for dinner. Someone took a picture, small town, and it got back to Hannah fast. Hannah called me at midnight, laughing like a villain. So it's true. You're dating my mom. I said, you left. You don't get to control what happens after. Hannah's voice turned sharp. You're disgusting. You're doing it to get back at me. Then Elise took the phone from me and said, calm as a judge. No, Hannah. I'm doing it because he's the only man in my life who never made me beg for basic respect. Hannah went silent. Then she whispered, Mom, you can't. Elise smiled, like she finally could breathe. Watch me. Story 11. My ex-wife, Lauren, liked to pretend she was above drama, while quietly starting every fire. After the divorce, she'd send polite emails like a lawyer, then show up at my place screaming because I made her look bad by following the custody schedule. Her mom, Peggy, was the one person who didn't buy Lauren's performance. Peggy was soft-spoken but terrifying when she got fed up, like a quiet teacher who finally snaps. One afternoon, Peggy called me and asked, can you come by? I need help moving a couch. It sounded harmless. When I got there, I saw suitcases by the door. She wasn't moving furniture, she was moving out. Lauren had moved back in temporarily and turned Peggy's house into a reality show. New boyfriend sleeping over, loud fights, demands for money, and constant insults masked as jokes. Peggy looked exhausted. I helped her load boxes into my truck. We didn't talk much. Then, in the driveway, she said, your divorce was the best thing that ever happened to you. I laughed. That's a wild way to comfort someone. She didn't smile. I'm serious. You got out. I'm trying to do the same. That sentence changed everything. Peggy rented a small apartment near my place. We started having coffee, then dinner, then those long, quiet evenings where you realize you're not tense anymore. Lauren found out because she stalked Peggy's location. Of course she did. She showed up at Peggy's apartment complex, banging on the door like she owned the building. When Peggy opened it, Lauren saw me inside and her face twisted. So this is why you moved out. You're shacking up with my ex? Peggy's voice was calm. Stop shouting. Lauren shoved her phone in Peggy's face. Say it's not true. Say he manipulated you. Peggy leaned closer and said coldly, manipulated? Lauren, you manipulated me for 30 years. Lauren turned to me with that fake laugh. Wow, you really climbed the family tree. I shrugged. You cut it down yourself. Lauren's eyes went mean. Fine. I'm calling the whole family. I'll make sure everyone knows you're both sick. Peggy didn't blink. Call them. And I'll tell them why your business account is actually my credit card. Story 12. My ex, Jody, was the type to rewrite history in real time. She'd cheat, then claim she was finding herself. She'd lie, then call it protecting her peace. Her mom, Sandra, ran a small catering company and had hands like she'd carried everyone's burdens forever. After the divorce, Sandra hired me for a weekend event because she needed extra help lifting equipment. She paid well, didn't talk much, but every time Jody's name came up, she'd flinch like it burned. At the end of the night, Sandra sat on a crate and said, I never liked how she treated you. I said, you didn't say anything. She nodded. I was scared she'd take my grandkids away. That hit me. Sandra had been trapped too, just in a different cage. We kept working together. Then we started getting breakfast after events. Then she started texting me memes like a teenager. It was ridiculous and sweet, and the first time in years I felt like someone saw me as more than a target. Jody found out at a birthday party for our kid. She arrived late, wearing a smile like armor, then saw Sandra leaning against my car while I tied balloons. Jody's face froze. Mom, why are you with him? Sandra wiped her hands on her jeans and said, because he shows up. You don't. Jody's smile cracked. So you're punishing me for having standards? Sandra stepped closer. Standards? You left your child with me for 2 weeks and forgot to pack medicine. Jody's voice got sharp. That was one time. Sandra's eyes went glossy. No, honey. That was your whole personality. Jody turned to me. Tell her this is a joke. I didn't flinch. It's not. Jody's voice dropped low and dangerous. If you keep this up, I'll make sure you never see your kid again. Sandra laughed, one short, bitter sound. Try it. I kept the texts. I kept the voicemails. I kept everything you assumed I'd delete. Jody's hands shook. You wouldn't. Sandra leaned in. I already sent copies to my lawyer. Story 13. My ex-wife, Kira, had a talent for turning every breakup into a public performance. She posted vague quotes, called me a narcissist, and acted like she survived a war rather than a marriage she ruined. Her mom, Yvonne, was a retired nurse who looked people in the eyes when they spoke. She showed up at my door one rainy night with an envelope. I found these in Kira's old room, she said. Letters you wrote her. She never opened them. Inside were the notes I wrote during couples therapy. Apologies, plans, promises, still sealed, like my effort had been returned to sender. Yvonne sat on my couch and said, she wanted you to chase her forever. That's her addiction. I didn't know what to say. Yvonne just nodded, like she didn't need a reply. We started seeing each other at my kids' school events. Then she invited me to dinner, so you're not alone on holidays. Then we started cooking together every Sunday like it was tradition. Kira found out when she came to pick up our kid and saw Yvonne's coat hanging in my hallway. She stepped inside, eyes scanning, and laughed. Oh my God. You're dating my mom. Yvonne walked out of the kitchen holding a plate like a judge holding a verdict. Lower your voice. You're scaring the child. Kira snapped. You're siding with him now? Yvonne said. I'm siding with reality. Kira pointed at me. You're doing this to humiliate me. I said, Kira, you humiliated yourself. I just stopped cleaning it up. Kira's face went red. She turned to Yvonne and whispered, venomous. Dad will hate you. Yvonne's eyes didn't move. Your father has hated me for 10 years. I stayed for you. And you still turned out cruel. Kira's mouth opened, then closed. Like for the first time, she realized she had no leverage. Then she did the only thing she could. She grabbed our kid's backpack and said, fine, enjoy your creepy little life. Yvonne smiled sweetly. Oh, we will. Story 14. My ex, Morgan, was obsessed with appearances. She didn't divorce me. She rebranded. New haircut, new friends, new man, new story where I was the reason she couldn't shine. Her mom, Faith, was the opposite. No filters, no acting, just tired honesty. After the split, Faith was the one who actually cared if I ate or slept. One night she called crying. Morgan had emptied Faith's savings account. It was a misunderstanding, Morgan said. I needed it for a business opportunity. Faith whispered to me, I feel so stupid. I drove over and sat with her at the kitchen table while she showed me bank statements. It wasn't just money. Morgan had been taking little pieces for years. I helped Faith file reports, freeze accounts, and get her life back. In the process, she started trusting me in a way Morgan never did. We started spending time together because Faith was scared to be alone. Then it stopped being helping and started being comfort, then affection, then the kind of calm relationship I didn't know existed. Morgan found out when she came to Faith's house demanding more money and saw my car in the driveway. She stormed in and screamed, "Mom, you're sleeping with my ex!" Faith didn't even stand up. "Yes." Morgan laughed like it was fake. "This is pathetic. You're trying to steal my life." Faith finally raised her voice, and the whole room went still. "Your life? You stole mine." Morgan's face shifted. "I can explain." Faith slammed the folder of bank statements on the table. "Explain the withdrawals. Explain the lies. Explain why you called me weak when I asked for boundaries." Morgan turned to me, eyes pleading and furious at the same time. "You're behind this. You're turning her against me." I said, "No, you did that. I'm just the person who didn't let her pretend it was normal." Morgan's mouth tightened. "Fine. Keep him. But I want my inheritance." Faith smiled. Slow. Lethal. "Oh, sweetheart, you're not in the will anymore." Story 15. My ex-wife, Dana, used to brag that her mom, Rita, would always pick her. Like Rita was a loyalty coupon Dana could redeem whenever she messed up. Dana cheated, got caught, and still demanded half of everything like she deserved a trophy. During the divorce, she tried to poison everyone against me, including Rita. But here's the thing. Rita was a therapist. She could smell manipulation like smoke. After it was over, Rita asked if we could talk as adults. I expected a lecture. Instead, she apologized. "I watched Dana twist your kindness into weakness," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't intervene sooner." That apology hit harder than the divorce papers. We started meeting for coffee to discuss co-parenting, mostly. Then it turned into talks about life. Then into hikes. Then into nights where we'd cook and end up laughing at stupid shows like teenagers. Dana found out because she snooped through our kid's tablet. She called me screaming, "You're with my mom!" I said, "Stop yelling." She shrieked, "You're sick. You're doing it to get back at me." Then Rita took the phone and said, calm and deadly, "Dana, you don't get to cheat, lie, and then police who feels loved after you burn everything down." Dana tried a softer tone. "Mom, come on. He's using you." Rita sighed. "Sweetheart, you've spent your whole life believing everyone is either using you or worshiping you. That's why you're alone." Dana's voice cracked. "So you're choosing him over me?" Rita paused. "No, I'm choosing a relationship where nobody threatens me." Dana hissed, "If you do this, I'll tell everyone you're unstable. I'll ruin your reputation." Rita's laugh was quiet. "Try it. I kept your therapy notes request. The one where you begged me to diagnose your ex as abusive without ever meeting him." Dana went silent. Rita smiled at me, then into the phone. "Merry Christmas, Dana." Story 16. My ex-wife, Sloane, had one hobby after the divorce. Winning the breakup. She'd post selfies with captions like, "Healing looks good on me," while privately DMing my coworkers to warn them about me. Her mom, Trish, was the only person who ever apologized for Sloane's behavior, like she was the PR manager for a hurricane. One night, Trish texted me, "Can you pick up your stuff from the old garage? Sloane's throwing it out." When I got there, Trish was standing beside a pile of boxes, photo albums, my dad's tools, letters, all the things Sloane couldn't monetize. Trish whispered. She didn't even look inside. She just wanted you to feel replaceable. I loaded everything into my car, and Trish stood there shaking with anger she'd swallowed for years. I didn't flirt. I didn't even hug her. I just said, "You don't have to be her shield." A month later, Trish showed up at my place with a black eye, and a story she didn't want to tell. Sloane's new boyfriend had grabbed her arm hard during an argument, and Sloane had laughed, like it was a joke. Trish finally realized she'd raised someone who loved cruelty. I helped Trish file a report. I drove her to appointments. I sat with her while she relearned what safe felt like. Somewhere in the middle of that, she started smiling again. Then she started cooking at my place. Then she started staying late. Sloane found out when she showed up unannounced to my apartment to drop off paperwork and saw Trish's coat on my chair. Her smile was sharp. "Mom, you're here a lot." Trish didn't move. "Yes?" Sloane turned to me. "So you're hooking up with my mom now? That's your big revenge?" "Creepy," I said. "Your revenge obsession is exhausting." Sloane laughed. "Mom, tell me you're not doing this." Trish's voice was quiet but brutal. "I'm doing what you never did. Choosing someone who doesn't think hurting people is entertainment." Sloane's eyes flashed. "If you keep seeing him, don't call me when you're old and alone." Trish smiled gently. "Honey, I've been alone for years. I just didn't have the freedom to admit it." Story 17. My ex-wife, Kim, treated boundaries like a personal insult. After the divorce, she'd show up at my door to talk, then scream when I didn't let her in. Her mom, Darlene, was the opposite. She respected rules because she'd spent her life raising someone who didn't. Darlene and I ended up in the same self-defense class. Not a joke. She joined because Kim's new boyfriend was volatile. I joined because I was tired of feeling like my life could be invaded anytime. First class, Darlene looked at me and said, "Well, this is awkward." I said, "Tell me about it." We kept going because quitting felt like letting Kim win. Over weeks, Darlene and I started sparring. We started laughing. We started getting smoothies after class and talking about everything except Kim. One day, Darlene admitted, "Kim told people you hit her." My stomach dropped. "That's not true." Darlene nodded. "I know." I asked her for details. She couldn't keep her story straight. That was the moment I realized Darlene wasn't just her mom. She was a woman waking up. We started dating slowly. Quiet dinners, long walks, no announcements. It felt sane. Kim found out at a family barbecue. She showed up late, saw me helping Darlene carry a tray, and froze like she'd been punched. She laughed too loud. "Oh my God. You're dating my mom." Darlene didn't flinch. "Yes." Kim's face turned mean. "Mom, you're doing this to hurt me." Darlene said, "No. I'm doing it because you've been hurting me for years." Kim snapped at me. "You're disgusting." I shrugged. "You call everyone disgusting when they stop obeying you." Kim stepped closer, voice low. "If you two keep this up, I'll make sure you regret it." Darlene smiled, pulled out her phone and said, "Say that again. I want it recorded for the restraining order paperwork." Story 18. My ex-wife Nessa loved telling people she escaped a toxic marriage. She never mentioned she was the one who drained our joint account and disappeared for 3 days with her boss. Her mom, Holly, was always polite to me in that stiff, guilty way, like she was holding back a truth that didn't fit the story. After the divorce, Holly invited me to meet because she said she had something important. I expected a lecture. Instead, she handed me a thick envelope. Inside were printed emails and screenshots. Nessa's affair timeline, the money transfers, the lies. Holly had found them when Nessa asked her to help clean up her laptop. Holly's hands trembled. She wanted me to delete them. I couldn't. I stared at her. "Why are you giving me this?" Holly swallowed. "Because you're not crazy, and I'm tired of being used as a mop." That day didn't start romance. It started an alliance, then friendship, then the weirdest version of trust I'd ever experienced. Someone from her side finally telling the truth. Nessa found out when she tried to sue me for emotional damages, and my lawyer dropped the envelope on the table. She called me screaming. "Where did you get that?" I didn't answer. Holly did, on speaker, without warning. "I gave it to him," Holly said. Nessa's voice cracked. "Mom, why?" Holly's tone was calm, like she'd already mourned the relationship. "Because you asked me to lie again. And I'm done." Nessa shifted to panic. You're with him, aren't you?" Holly sighed. "Yes." Nessa started laughing like she was dying. "So you stole my husband." Holly's voice turned sharp. "You threw him away like trash and expected him to stay garbage." Nessa screamed. "I'll tell everyone you're both sick." Holly replied. "Go ahead. I'll tell them you tried to pay me to commit fraud." Story 19. My ex-wife April had a gift for turning kindness into a trap. She'd ask for help and then punish you for giving it. After the divorce, she'd text me at midnight, "I miss you." Then in the morning, "Don't get ideas." Her mom, Judith, was a retired judge. Not the cute TV kind. The kind who could silence a room by breathing. Judith invited me to dinner to discuss the child's schedule. I expected interrogation. Instead, she asked one question. "Why did you tolerate my daughter for so long?" I said, "Because I thought love meant endurance." Judith nodded once. That's the first honest thing anyone said to me about her. Over months, Judith and I started exchanging books. Then dinners became regular. Then she started calling me when she needed someone to lift groceries because her knee was bad. We became close. April found out at court. She had dragged me back over a minor paperwork issue just to flex. She walked into the hallway, saw Judith beside me, and stopped dead. "Mom?" April whispered. "Why are you here?" Judith said. "Support." April's eyes went to me, then back. "Support? For him?" Judith's voice was flat. "Yes." April's face twisted. "This is disgusting. You're supposed to be loyal to me." Judith stared at her like a case file. "Loyalty is not slavery." April turned to me, venom in her smile. "So you're dating my mother to punish me?" Judith cut in. "No, April. He's dating me because I'm not you." The hallway went silent. A clerk actually stopped walking. April's eyes flashed tears, then rage. "Fine. Keep him. You'll both regret this." Judith leaned in, calm as a verdict. "Threaten him again, and I'll testify about the things I've covered up for you since you were 18. April went white. For the first time in my life, she had no comeback. Story 20. My ex-wife, Brooke, built her identity on being the good daughter. She used that image like a shield. Sweet smiles, polite hugs, then private cruelty. After the divorce, she told everyone I was emotionally unstable. Meanwhile, she was calling my phone at 2 a.m. to scream because her new relationship wasn't going well. Her mom, Lila, contacted me first. She said, I need to talk to you away from Brooke. We met at a diner. Lila looked like she'd aged 5 years since the divorce. She slid a napkin across the table with a single sentence written on it. She's lying about you. I'm sorry. I felt my throat tighten. Why now? Lila's eyes filled. Because she started lying about me too. Turns out Brooke had been telling family members that Lila was senile, so she could control her finances. Lila only discovered it when a cousin called to check on her. I helped Lila meet with a lawyer, set up protections, and cut off Brooke's access. Lila started calling me my safe person, and that word did something to my chest. We didn't rush it. We didn't make it a headline. It grew in the quiet. Brooke found out when she tried to access Lila's account again and it got flagged. She stormed into Lila's house and saw me at the table, papers spread out. Brooke's voice went high. You're here because you're still obsessed with me. Lila stood up slowly. No, Brooke, he's here because you tried to steal from your own mother. Brooke's eyes snapped to me. So you're dating her now? I said. Yes. Brooke laughed, shaking. You're both sick. Lila's voice turned steady. Call us whatever you want, but you're not getting another dime. Brooke stepped closer, teeth clenched. If you do this, I'll ruin you online. Lila smiled softly. Go ahead. I already posted first, about the theft. With receipts. Under your full name. Story 21. My ex-wife Elise loved moral high ground. She'd cheat, then cry about how lonely she felt. She'd lie, then say she did it for the kids. After the divorce, she went full influencer. Soft lighting, sad quotes, captions about healing from abuse. Her mom, Marge, was a blunt, cigarette and coffee type who didn't care about branding. She called me one day and said, your ex is telling people you hit her. I know you didn't. I want the truth. I met Marge at a diner. She brought a notebook like she was interviewing a suspect. I told her everything. No drama, just facts. She listened, then nodded once and said, okay. She's insane. Marge asked for help installing cameras because Elise kept showing up at her house at midnight, screaming on the porch to get sympathy on ring footage. I came over, drilled the mounts, tested the angles. Elise arrived mid-install, saw me on a ladder, and exploded. Oh my God, she screeched. You're stalking my mom now? Marge didn't even raise her voice. He's installing cameras so I can sleep. Elise's eyes went wild. Mom, you're choosing him? After what he did? Marge stared at her. After what you did? Stop auditioning for victimhood. Elise pulled out her phone and started recording. Everyone, look. My abusive ex is invading my mother's home. Marge stepped into frame, took the phone from Elise's hand like she was taking candy from a kid, and said, Sweetie, the only thing invading my home is you. Elise lunged for the phone. Marge held it up and said, touch me, and I'll press charges. Elise froze. Then she spat. You're jealous. That's what this is. Marge smiled. Slow, mean. Jealous? Honey, I'm relieved. Because if he's with me, he's far away from you. Elise stormed off. That night, Marge texted me. Want a beer? You earned it. 2 months later, Elise learned the hard way that beer turned into dates, and dates turned into Marge changing the locks on everything. Story 22. My ex-wife, Tori, was the queen of soft cruelty. She never yelled. She'd just smile and say things like, you're lucky I tolerated you, then watch you crumble. Her mom, Janine, was a hospice nurse. She'd seen real pain, which meant she had zero patience for manufactured drama. After the divorce, Janine reached out because Tori had stopped letting her see the grandkids. She says you're dangerous, Janine told me. But she also asked me for money yesterday. Which story is it? We met at a park to exchange the kids. Janine showed up too, and Tori instantly stiffened. She did that tight smile and said, Mom, don't start. Janine replied, I'm not starting. I'm finishing. Tori tried to walk away with the kids, but Janine blocked her path. Not aggressive, just immovable. You don't get to use children as leverage, she said, calm as a doctor. Tori's eyes flicked to me like she wanted me to rescue her from consequences. I didn't. Later, Janine asked if I could help her move some furniture because she was downsizing. We spent an entire Saturday lifting boxes and talking about everything except Tori. Janine laughed in this warm, exhausted way that made my chest feel less tight. The relationship didn't start with flirting. It started with Janine saying, thank you for not turning into her. Weeks later, Tori showed up at Janine's new place and saw my shoes by the door. She stepped inside like she owned the oxygen. Oh, she said, voice dripping. So this is happening. Janine didn't apologize. Yes? Tori's smile got bigger. Congratulations, Mom. You finally found someone to take care of you. Janine's eyes turned sharp. No, Tori. I found someone who doesn't punish me for loving them. Tori turned to me. Enjoy it. She'll leave you the second you disappoint her. Janine laughed. One short laugh. That's what you do. Tori's face snapped. If you pick him, you lose me. Janine stepped closer and said quietly, if you keep acting like this, I already lost you. Story 23. My ex-wife, Renee, had the kind of charm that made strangers defend her before hearing the story. She used it in the divorce like a weapon. Every mutual friend became a jury. Her mom, Valerie, was a former accountant who'd been divorced twice and didn't romanticize anything. She called me after the split and said, I'm not calling to comfort you. I'm calling because my daughter is lying. Valerie invited me over, poured 2 coffees, and pulled out a folder. Inside were bills Renee had run up under Valerie's name. Credit cards, subscriptions, even a car payment. Valerie was shaking with rage. She did it to me, Valerie said, voice cracking. If she did it to her own mother, what did she do to you? I didn't even feel vindicated. I felt tired. I helped Valerie report it, freeze accounts, set up alerts. She started calling me for advice, then for company. One night she admitted, I thought if I kept saving her, she'd learn. She didn't. She just got better at drowning people. We started spending time together like 2 survivors sharing notes. It became gentle, real, no performance. Renee found out at a family dinner Valerie still hosted out of habit. Renee walked in with a new boyfriend, saw me sitting next to Valerie, and her grin melted. Mom, she said low, why is he here? Valerie didn't blink. Because I invited him. Renee's boyfriend whispered, is that your ex? Like he'd stepped into a trap. Renee turned on, so you're here to steal my family now? Valerie leaned forward. He's not stealing anything. You pawned it. Renee's face went red. Mom, this is disgusting. Valerie smiled, sharp and clean. Disgusting is committing fraud against your own mother and still thinking you're owed loyalty. Renee opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then she tried the old tactic. Tears. Mom, please, Valerie stood up and said, loud enough for everyone. Get out and take your boyfriend before I show him your debt. Story 24. My ex-wife, Cassie, was the type to weaponize therapy language. She'd insult you and call it being honest. She'd ghost you and call it protecting her energy. Her mom, Nadine, ran a small bakery and worked 6 days a week. Cassie still treated her like an ATM. After the divorce, Nadine asked if I could help her with deliveries because her driver quit. I said yes because I needed extra money, and honestly, I missed the smell of cinnamon that reminded me of a calmer life. We spent mornings loading trays, listening to old radio, laughing at stupid mistakes. Nadine didn't talk like a victim. She talked like a woman who'd carried too much for too long. Cassie found out because she showed up at the bakery demanding a loan. She saw me behind the counter, flour on my shirt, helping Nadine count cash. Cassie's face twisted. You're working here now? Pathetic. Nadine looked up. Be polite. Cassie laughed. Oh, now you're defending him. What is this, mommy's new pet? Nadine's eyes went hard. I'm defending myself. He's here because he helps. You're here because you take. Cassie stepped closer to Nadine. If you don't give me money, I'll tell everyone you're dating my ex. Nadine smiled sweetly. Tell them. Maybe they'll stop asking why you never pay your bills. Cassie turned to me, voice sharp. You're doing this to stay in my life. I said, Cassie, I'm doing this to stay employed. The customers in line were watching. Cassie's cheeks flushed. Then Nadine did the thing that ended it. She pulled a small envelope from the register, handed it to Cassie and said, Here's your money. Cassie snatched it, triumphant, until she opened it and saw it wasn't cash. It was a copy of a police report Nadine had already filed for stolen checks. Nadine leaned in and said softly, You're not my client, Cassie. You're my problem. And I'm done. Story 25. My ex-wife, Harper, broke up with me like she was firing an employee. We're incompatible, she said, while packing my things into trash bags and smiling like she was efficient. Her mom, Sylvia, was the only one who looked sick about it. She kept repeating, I'm sorry, like it was a prayer. Months later, Sylvia invited me to a community theater show she was directing because she didn't want me to disappear. I went. I sat in the back. After the show, she found me and said, You still have that sad look. I said, It matches my life. She laughed, warm, real, and for the first time in months, my chest loosened. We started meeting after rehearsals, then going on walks, then sharing dinners. It wasn't scandalous at first. It was healing. Harper found out when she came to drop off paperwork and saw Sylvia's car in my driveway. She walked inside like she owned the past. Oh, Harper said, eyes wide. So that's why Mom's been busy. Sylvia stepped out of the kitchen, wiping her hands. Yes, Harper stared at her mother like she was seeing a stranger. Mom, this is humiliating. Sylvia's voice stayed calm. Humiliating for who? Harper turned to me. You're seriously dating her? That's gross, I said. You're the one who treated us like objects. We're acting like humans. Harper's mouth tightened. If you do this, I'll tell everyone you're a creep. Sylvia smiled, almost sad. Tell them. And I'll tell them how you begged me to lie in court about him. Harper blinked. You wouldn't. Sylvia's expression went cold. Try me. Harper looked around my house, my life, and realized she couldn't control it anymore. Her voice shook when she said, "So you're both just leaving me behind?" Sylvia answered steady. "No, Harper. You left first."